I'm standing in the server room at 3 in the morning, and my phone won't stop buzzing. 15 missed calls. 23 text messages. All from her. All panic. The cooling fans hum around me, and I'm thinking about how I got here, to this exact moment where everything I built is falling apart in someone else's hands. But let me rewind. 3 years ago, I was living in a cramped apartment in the suburbs with my daughter Sophie. She was 7 then, just started second grade, and I was working double shifts at a call center while studying for my systems architecture certification. Money was always tight. Her father had disappeared when she was 2, and child support was a fantasy I'd given up chasing. Every dollar mattered. Every opportunity mattered more. The apartment had thin walls. I could hear our neighbors arguing most nights. Sophie would climb into bed with me when the shouting got loud, and I'd hold her and promise that things would get better. I meant it. I just didn't know how yet. My certification exam cost $800. I saved for 6 months, skipping lunches, taking on extra call center overtime, saying no to Sophie's requests for new shoes until her toes were cramped. The night before the exam, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what would happen if I failed, if those 6 months of sacrifice amounted to nothing. I passed with a 92% score. Capahorn Technologies wasn't my dream job initially. It was just the first place that responded to my application after I got certified. A mid-sized tech firm specializing in supply chain management software for manufacturing clients. They needed someone who could handle their legacy systems while building out new infrastructure. The pay was decent, not great, but it had health insurance and the hours meant I could pick Sophie up from school most days. My manager was Diane Foster. 40-something, always perfectly dressed, the kind of person who smiled with her mouth but never her eyes. She had this way of speaking that made everything sound like she was doing you a favor just by acknowledging your existence. From day one, she made it clear I was lucky to be there. During my first week, she gave me a tour of the office and introduced me to the team with phrases like "Ashley will be helping us out and we're giving her a chance." Not "Ashley brings valuable expertise" or "we're fortunate to have her." The framing was deliberate. I was the recipient of charity, not a professional bringing skills they needed. I didn't argue. I needed the job too badly. The first 6 months, I kept my head down and learned everything. Capahorn systems were a mess, honestly. Decades of patches on top of patches, documentation that contradicted itself, and critical processes held together by scripts that nobody understood anymore. But I'm good at puzzles. I'm good at finding patterns in chaos. Slowly, I started mapping everything out, cleaning up the architecture, making things actually work the way they were supposed to. There was this one system that handled inventory synchronization. It had been failing randomly for 2 years. The previous architect had left detailed notes about how temperamental it was, but no one had actually diagnosed the root cause. I spent 3 weeks tracing through the code and discovered it was a timing issue in how the database connections were pooled. Fixed it in 40 lines of code. Diane barely noticed. She was busy with executive meetings and client presentations, taking credit for department stability while I was the one keeping the servers from catching fire. Then came the Bergman Industries contract. Bergman was a massive automotive parts manufacturer looking to overhaul their entire supply chain system. They were talking about a 3-year partnership worth millions to Capahorn. But their infrastructure was complicated, spread across 12 facilities in 5 different countries, and they needed someone who could not just implement our software but customize it to their specific workflow. Diane volunteered our department. Which meant she volunteered me. I remember the meeting where she explained it. "This is big for us, Ashley. Really big. I need you to make this work." She said it like she was entrusting me with something precious, but I could hear what she wasn't saying. If it failed, it would be my failure. If it succeeded, it would be her success. I said yes anyway. Because that's what you do when you need to keep your job. The project started in January. Bergman's operations director was a man named Karl Hoffman, mid-50s, German, extremely precise. Our first video call, he spent 2 hours grilling me on technical specifications. He wanted to know everything, every detail about how I planned to handle data migration, system integration, failure protocols. Diane sat in on that call and contributed nothing except occasional nods. Carl asked pointed questions about our approach to redundancy and disaster recovery. I walked him through my planned architecture, explaining how we'd handle failover scenarios and data integrity checks. He listened intently, occasionally making notes. After the call, Carl sent me a direct email. "I look forward to working with you, Ms. Willis. It is clear you understand what we need." That felt good. It felt like respect. The next 8 months were brutal. I was working 60, 70-hour weeks. Diane kept piling on additional requirements from Bergman without adjusting timelines or resources. Every time I pushed back, she'd give me that smile and say something like, "I know you can handle this. You're so capable." Capable meant exploitable. Sophie started spending more time with my mom. I'd pick her up at 9, 10 at night, and she'd already be in her pajamas, homework done, looking at me with these big understanding eyes that made me want to cry. 8 years old and already learning that her mother's time wasn't really her own. One night in April, Sophie had a school play. She was playing a sunflower in some environmental awareness production. She'd been practicing her lines for weeks, excited to show me. I promised I'd be there. But that afternoon, Diane called an emergency meeting about a Bergman deliverable. The meeting ran until 7. The play started at 6:30. I missed it. When I picked Sophie up from my mom's house that night, she didn't say anything about it. Just hugged me and said she was tired. My mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "She cried for 20 minutes looking for you in the audience," she told me quietly. Then she went on and did her part perfectly, smiling the whole time. I felt something crack inside my chest. But I kept telling myself it would be worth it. When this project succeeded, when Bergman signed their full contract, there would be a promotion. A raise. Something to make the sacrifice meaningful. In June, Diane assigned me to fly to Bergman's headquarters in Stuttgart for 3 weeks to oversee the initial deployment. I'd never been to Germany before. Under different circumstances, it might have been exciting. Instead, it was just exhausting. 15-hour days in sterile office buildings, working with Bergman's IT team to integrate systems, troubleshooting problems in real time. The Bergman facility was impressive, modern, and efficient. Their IT department occupied an entire floor of glass-walled offices overlooking the manufacturing complex. You could see the assembly lines from the conference rooms, robots, and people working in synchronized precision. Carl was there most days. He was demanding but fair. When something worked, he acknowledged it. When I solved a problem efficiently, he said so. It was such a stark contrast to Diane, who I'd update via email and get back responses like "fine" or "keep me posted." The Bergman IT staff were friendly too. A woman named Petra, their senior developer, took me out for coffee one afternoon during a rare break. We sat at a cafe near their office, and she asked about my background, genuinely curious about how I'd learned systems architecture. "You are very good at this," she said. "Your company is lucky to have you." I laughed, tired. "I don't think they see it that way." She frowned. "Then they are foolish." That conversation stuck with me. Someone recognizing my value as obvious, not conditional. Not something I had to constantly prove. During my second week there, we encountered a major integration challenge. Bergman's existing inventory system used a proprietary database structure that our software wasn't designed to handle. The standard approach would have required them to completely rebuild their database, which would have taken months and cost them significant downtime. I spent an entire weekend in my hotel room designing a custom middleware layer that could translate between the two systems in real time. Monday morning, I presented it to Carl and his team. They were skeptical at first, but when I demonstrated a working prototype, the room went quiet. "This is excellent work," Carl said finally. "How long to implement fully?" 2 weeks, maybe less." He nodded slowly. "You have solved in 3 days what we thought would take 3 months. Impressive." The deployment went smoothly. Better than smoothly. We finished 5 days ahead of schedule with 0 critical errors. Carl sent a formal commendation to Capahorn's executive team praising my work specifically. I saw the email, copied to me almost as an afterthought. I flew home exhausted but hopeful. Sophie made me a welcome home card with crayon drawings of airplanes and stick figures holding hands. My mom had dark circles under her eyes from the extended babysitting. I promised myself this was almost over. 2 days after I got back, Diane called me into her office. "Ashley, sit down. She had that expression on, the one that pretends at warmth. I want to talk to you about the Bergman project. It's going really well, I started. Carl's team is happy, and we're positioned perfectly for the expansion phase. That's actually what I wanted to discuss. She leaned back in her chair. I'm bringing Corey onto the project. Corey Hutchins. 26, fresh MBA, been at Capahorn for 8 months. Diane's protégé. He was smart enough, I guess, but he didn't have the technical depth. He was more of a smooth talker, good at presentations, less good at actual system architecture. Bringing him on in what capacity? I asked carefully. He'll be taking over as lead. She said it casually, like she was discussing lunch options. You've done excellent groundwork, but Corey has a better rapport with executive-level clients. This is a high-visibility project, and I think his skill set is better suited for the next phase. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Diane, I've spent 8 months building this from scratch. I know every detail of their system. Carl specifically requested to work with me. Carl will be fine working with Corey. He learns faster than you anyway. She actually laughed when she said it. This light, dismissive little laugh like she was stating an obvious fact. I sat there for a moment, processing. All those late nights. All those missed dinners with Sophie. That school play I'd missed. All that expertise I'd built, those relationships I'd cultivated. And she was just reassigning it to someone who'd barely understand what he was inheriting. What will my role be? I asked quietly. You'll support Corey, of course. Be available for technical questions. But he'll handle client interaction and strategic decisions going forward. Support. After everything. I stood up slowly. Okay. Her eyebrows raised slightly. I think she expected more pushback. Maybe tears, maybe anger. Great. I'll set up a transition meeting for tomorrow. I walked out of that office calmly. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I went back to my desk, sat down, and stared at my computer screen. Something inside me had shifted. Not broken, shifted. Like a gear clicking into a different position. I worked the rest of the day documenting everything. Every process, every password, every contact at Bergman, every technical specification. I made it thorough because I'm thorough by nature. But I didn't explain context. I didn't include the institutional knowledge that lived in my head, all the little workarounds and relationship nuances that made things actually function. That was Wednesday. Thursday, I had the transition meeting. Corey sat there with his laptop, taking notes, nodding confidently. Diane facilitated, acting like this was all perfectly normal. I walked them through the documentation I'd created. Corey asked superficial questions that showed he didn't really understand the architecture. So this middleware layer you built, he said, scrolling through my documentation, could we simplify this? Seems overly complex. I looked at him. It's complex because Bergman's infrastructure is complex. Every component serves a specific purpose. Right, but I'm thinking from a maintenance perspective. Simpler is usually better. I didn't argue. You're the lead now. You'll make those decisions. Diane jumped in. Don't worry, she said, patting his shoulder. Ashley will be here to help. Friday morning, Carl emailed me directly. Ms. Willis, I received notice that someone named Corey Hutchins will now be our primary contact. I am confused. Have you left Capahorn? I wrote back carefully. I'm still with the company, but leadership has decided to restructure the project team. Corey will be your main point of contact moving forward. I'm available if you need me. His response came within an hour. I see. This is unexpected. I hope you understand that our confidence in this partnership was based significantly on your involvement. I would like a call with you and your management to discuss. I forwarded that email to Diane. She didn't respond. Friday afternoon, Corey sent out his first update to the Bergman team, copying me. It was full of buzzwords and generic statements about leveraging synergies and optimizing implementation strategies. No actual substance. No understanding of where the project actually stood. I went home that night and had dinner with Sophie. Real dinner, sitting at the table, not reheated takeout at 9 p.m. She told me about a science project on butterflies. I listened to every word. "Mom, you seem different," she said. "Different how?" "I don't know. Less tired maybe." I smiled at her. "Maybe I am." That weekend, I didn't check my work email once. I took Sophie to the park. We got ice cream. We visited the library and she picked out 6 books about space exploration. She'd recently decided she wanted to be an astronaut. I bought all 6 books without worrying about the cost. Saturday night, we made homemade pizza together. Sophie got flour everywhere, laughing as she tried to toss the dough like she'd seen on cooking shows. For the first time in months, I felt present. Not thinking about work, not mentally solving problems, just there with my daughter. I slept 8 hours on Saturday night for the first time in months. Monday morning, 3 days after I'd walked out of Diane's office, I came in at my normal time. I made coffee, checked my personal email, started working on some routine maintenance tasks. At 10:15, Diane rushed into my workspace. Her hair wasn't perfect. Her makeup was slightly smudged. She looked genuinely panicked. "Ashley. I need you." I looked up calmly. "What's going on?" "It's Bergman. Carl's team tried to run the quarterly data migration over the weekend and everything crashed. Corey's been on the phone with them for an hour and he can't figure out what went wrong. They're threatening to halt the entire contract." I took a sip of my coffee. "That's concerning. Can you fix it?" "What did Corey say the problem was?" "Something about database corruption, but he's not making sense." "Ashley, please. I need you to handle this." I looked at her standing there, desperate, needing me now that the consequences of her decision were materializing. I thought about Sophie's drawing on my fridge. I thought about Petra saying they are foolish. I thought about that laugh, "He learns faster than you anyway." "No," I said. She blinked. "What?" "No, I can't fix it. Corey's the lead now. He should handle it." "Ashley, this isn't the time for..." "I'm not being petty, Diane. I'm being accurate. Corey needs to learn how to manage these situations. That's why you put him in charge, right? Because he's better suited for this?" Her face went through several expressions. Disbelief. Anger. Then something like fear. "You're really going to let this fail out of spite?" "I'm going to respect your decision to restructure the team. You said Corey learns faster than me. Let him learn." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned and left. I went back to my maintenance tasks. Over the next 2 hours, I could hear chaos building. Diane's voice getting louder on phone calls. Corey practically running between offices. Someone from executive leadership showed up. At noon, Carl called me directly on my cell. "Ms. Willis, I need to speak with you urgently." "Hello, Carl. I'm not sure I'm the right person." "Please." His voice was strained. "I have been on calls all morning with people who do not understand our system. You understand it. I am asking you, professional to professional, for your help." There was something in his tone. Not demanding. Not entitled. Just genuine respect and desperation. "What happened?" I asked. He explained. During the migration, Corey had tried to optimize one of my scripts without understanding what it did. He'd broken the validation sequence, which corrupted the database integrity checks. Now nothing would process, and they had production systems frozen across multiple facilities. "Can you fix this?" Carl asked. "Yes. But I need to be honest with you about something first." I told him everything. The demotion. The reassignment. Diane's decision. The fact that I had no authority anymore on this project. There was a long silence. "Ms. Willis, I understand. Will you please hold for a moment?" The line went quiet. 3 minutes later, Carl came back. "I have just spoken with our CEO. We are suspending our contract with Capahorn effective immediately unless you are reinstated as our primary technical contact with full authority over implementation. This is non-negotiable." My heart started pounding. "Carl, I appreciate that, but you have shown us respect and competence. Your company has shown us neither. We will not continue under these conditions. Will you fix our systems?" "Yes. I'll fix them. Good. I will inform Capahorn management now. He hung up. 10 minutes later, Diane appeared at my desk again. This time she was shaking slightly. Behind her was Lawrence Quinn, Capahorn's VP of Operations. Ashley, Lawrence said, his voice carefully controlled. We need to discuss the Bergman situation. We went to a conference room. Diane sat there looking like she wanted to disappear. Lawrence laid it out plainly. Bergman had given them an ultimatum. Either I came back as lead with complete authority, or they walked. A 3-year, multi-million-dollar contract was hanging by a thread. What do you need from us? Lawrence asked me directly. I'd been thinking about this moment since I'd said no to Diane. I'd been thinking about Sophie and my mom and all those late nights and that dismissive laugh. First, I need full project authority restored. Not support. Led. Done. Second, I need a formal title change to Senior Systems Architect with appropriate compensation adjustment. Lawrence glanced at Diane, then back to me. We can discuss. Non-negotiable. If I'm going to rebuild trust with Bergman, I need them to see Capahorn valuing me appropriately. He nodded slowly. Agreed. What compensation level are you looking for? I named a figure. It was 30% higher than my current salary. Fair market value for someone with my skills and the responsibility I was taking on. Lawrence didn't flinch. Done. Third, reasonable hours. I have a daughter. I'll work hard, but I won't sacrifice her again for a company that doesn't respect me. Reasonable. Fourth, I report directly to you now, not to Diane. Diane's head snapped up. Lawrence. He held up his hand. Under the circumstances, that seems appropriate. I looked at Diane. Her face was pale. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired and clear-headed. I'll fix Bergman's systems today, I said. And I'll rebuild their confidence in Capahorn. But things are different now. Lawrence stood. Thank you, Ashley. I'm sorry it took this crisis for us to see clearly. That won't happen again. He left. Diane sat there for a moment, then stood without looking at me and walked out. I spent the rest of that afternoon on calls with Carl's team. The fix took 4 hours, it would have taken Corey days, if he'd figured it out at all. By evening, their systems were running smoothly again. Carl's relief was audible. Thank you, Ms. Willis. You have, as always, exceeded expectations. Carl, can I ask you something? Of course. When you suspended the contract, was that really your CEO's decision or yours? He was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, warm and genuine. Let us say that I presented the situation in a way that made the decision obvious. You deserved better treatment. I simply ensured you received it. After we hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot for a while. The sun was setting. My phone showed a text from my mom, Sophie and I made dinner. Come home when you're ready. Something had fundamentally changed. Not just at work, but in how I saw myself. I wasn't grateful anymore for being tolerated. I knew what I was worth. The next few weeks were strange. Diane barely spoke to me, which was fine. Lawrence checked in regularly, making sure I had what I needed. Corey got quietly reassigned to a different department. The office gossip network buzzed with speculation, but I stayed out of it. I focused on Bergman. Carl and I rebuilt our working rhythm. His team trusted me. More importantly, I trusted myself. In October, Lawrence called me into his office. I wanted you to hear this from me first. Diane is leaving Capahorn. It's being framed as pursuing other opportunities, but between us, she was asked to resign. The executive team took a close look at her management practices after the Bergman incident. Yours wasn't the only situation where her judgment was questionable. I absorbed this news. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me just felt sad that it had taken a crisis for anyone to notice. We'd like you to consider stepping into a leadership role, Lawrence continued. Not her exact position, but heading up our technical architecture division. You'd have a team working under you. I need to think about it, I said. He smiled. Fair enough. Take your time. That night, I talked it over with Sophie. She was 9 now, getting taller, more articulate. We sat on the couch with hot chocolate. Would it mean more work? She asked. Different work. I'd manage people instead of just doing everything myself. In some ways, easier. But more responsibility. Would you be happy? That stopped me. I think so. I think I'd be good at it. Better than Diane was. Then you should do it. She said it with such certainty, like it was obvious. When did you get so wise? She grinned. I learned from my mom. I took the position. Started in November. Building a team was different from building systems, but some principles were the same. Clear communication. Respect for expertise. Fair distribution of credit and responsibility. I hired carefully. I made sure people could have lives outside work. When someone on my team did good work, I made sure they got recognized publicly. When mistakes happened, I addressed them privately without humiliation. My first hire was a woman named Olivia, fresh out of graduate school with a background in distributed systems. She was brilliant but nervous in the interview, clearly worried she wasn't experienced enough. I saw myself in her. I'm not looking for someone who knows everything, I told her. I'm looking for someone who thinks clearly under pressure and treats people with respect. Can you do that? She nodded, relieved. Then you're hired. Olivia turned out to be one of the best decisions I made. Within 3 months, she'd optimized our backup protocols so efficiently that we saved the company $60,000 annually in storage costs. It felt right. In December, I heard through industry contacts that Diane had landed at a smaller firm. Within 3 months, there were reports of high turnover in her department. People leaving, projects delayed, client complaints. The pattern was repeating because she hadn't changed. She probably never would. I didn't feel satisfied hearing that. I felt grateful I'd gotten out from under her management before it destroyed my sense of self-worth entirely. The Bergman contract expanded in January, just over a year after the crisis. They wanted to roll out our systems to 8 additional facilities. Carl flew to our office for the contract signing. Afterward, he asked if we could talk privately. We went to a coffee shop near Capahorn's building. I wanted to tell you something, Carl said. After what happened last year, I recommended you to 3 other companies in our industry. 2 have already reached out to Capahorn for consulting partnerships specifically requesting you. I stared at him. Carl, thank you. You should know your value, Ms. Willis. Not just to Capahorn, but more broadly. The industry notices competence and integrity. You have both. Those words meant more than any raise or promotion. Sophie turned 10 in March. We had a birthday party at our apartment, bigger now, 2 bedrooms, in a better neighborhood. She invited 12 friends. There was cake and chaos and laughter. My mom was there, looking rested and happy. At one point, Sophie hugged me hard and whispered, "Best mom ever." That night, after everyone left and Sophie was asleep, I sat on my couch with tea and thought about the journey. From that moment in Diane's office, that laugh, that casual dismissal, to here. To stability and respect and the ability to set boundaries without fear. The revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't in Diane's downfall. That was just consequence catching up with poor leadership. The real victory was in reclaiming my sense of worth. In learning to say no. In understanding that being undervalued said everything about them and nothing about me. I still work hard. I still solve complex problems. But I do it on my terms now, with people who respect what I bring. My team is thriving. Bergman just renewed their contract for another 3 years. I'm making more money than I ever thought possible when I was studying for certifications in that cramped apartment. But more than any of that, when I pick Sophie up from school now, I'm present. Not exhausted and resentful. Not sacrificing her for people who see me as disposable. Just there, fully, as her mother. Sometimes I think about that moment in the server room at 3 a.m., my phone buzzing with Diane's panic. How I felt that cold clarity settle in. How I chose myself. That choice changed everything. Not just my career trajectory, but my understanding of what I deserve. Respect isn't something you earn through endless sacrifice. It's something you claim by recognizing your own value first. Diane taught me that, though not in the way she intended. Her contempt showed me exactly who I didn't want to be, both as a professional and as a person. Her downfall wasn't something I engineered. It was simply what happens when you mistake exploitation for leadership, when you mistake loyalty for weakness. I'm grateful, in a strange way. Grateful for the clarity that came from being pushed too far. Grateful for Carl's respect that showed me what professional relationships should look like. Grateful for Sophie's patience and my mom's support. Grateful for the strength I found when I finally said no. The server room is quiet now most nights. Systems running smoothly. Team trained well. Problems solved before they become crises. And me, going home at reasonable hours to my daughter and our life together. That's the real ending. Not dramatic. Not flashy. Just quiet dignity and boundaries and the knowledge that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be diminished. Sometimes it's just living well, with clear eyes and a clear conscience, knowing you chose yourself when it mattered most. And that's enough.